chaos in terms of project management practices. So type 1 itself assumes that there are some processes that are being adopted in an organization and stakeholders are satisfied. Type 2 is moving up from satisfaction to an alignment. Now, most important thing, actually it happens also to us in life, that I read a research study most recently that all this diabetic and blood pressure and all of these things are not caused by, people would say, bad food habits, bad other bad habits, bad sleeping habits, and blah, 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 and all that. It is actually due to, stress is caused due to lack of predictability. And lack of predictability, you know, assuming that if you have to go to your office, and then suddenly you realize that there's a VIP going on up in that road, and then you have to rush for a meeting. You started at the same time, assuming that you would reach the office at the same time as any other day, and in between you are stopped at a traffic signal because some VIP is passing by, and then 10 minutes you are held up in the traffic. It causes a lot of stress because you are not able to predict what time you would reach your office. Now, if it is just for us, what would happen? Now, just scale it up and think a little bit more, and think that if our company has invested 1 crore of rupees, and our CEO is answerable to several shareholders, think of how much of an anxiety that our CEO would have about all that. So what's important is consistency of doing things and repeatability of doing those things and all becomes very important. This is not doing it on heroic. That's not the way. So you should. That's the reason why there should be a process, so that it is repeatable and consistent. So the value in the type 2 organizations, they not only are satisfied with the value, and they see deriving that value consistently and repeatably by replicating those processes and good processes, best practices and all that. That's type 2 organization maturity. Type 3, they start actually recognizing and measuring what are the efficiencies that we got out of this implementation. And efficiencies always are in terms of resources saved. It can be man days, it can be some money, it can be some reduction in capital equipment, it can be reduction in some operating expenditure, whatever. So as a result of implementation of project management processes that the company and being adopted repeatably, then companies start valuing the efficiencies that they are getting out of this implementation. That is type 3 organization. It's type 3 is the maturity level 3, I would say. Type 4 is really the business outcome, and it is associated with creation of actual business outcomes resulting from the implementation. And business outcome is extremely important. Just thinking, just as an example, the fiercest competition generally, if you will see, besides the cola wars and all, it happens in either electronic goods or in the fast-moving consumer goods. It happens. Example, TV. If you would say the TV manufacturers like Sony or LG or whoever, if they would think that okay, there will be a World Cup soccer which will be watched by maximum percentage of population among all the sports, and that would happen, say, I don't remember when, but assuming that it is 2017. So they would have started some R&D work already in 2014, thinking that what are those new features that we would bring to all of our viewers who may want to buy TV in 2017 to watch the new World Cup. And they will start their R&D work, and they will go off it and all of it, and they will invest a lot of money now in R&D, and for something that they will deliver in end of 2016 or 2017. And that is R&D, manufacturing, marketing, sales, branding, blah, 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 all of those. So put in a lot of money, and assuming that in their project is delayed by 2 months out of in a project that is running over 4 years. Meaning out of 48 months, if it is delayed, say just as an example, over 1 month. So anybody would say, if you will do a typical project manager's report would say 30 days out of whatever days is a very small fraction in the bigger scheme of things in the whole project. It can be some, I cannot calculate it right from the top of my head, but it will be a very small percentage. And generally we would say, okay, this is allowed, you know, it's a 48-month project, and it is understandable that there can be a 1 month delay and all of it, and then we just brush aside. But that's not is the business outcome. In a business outcome is that just because my company's TV is released 1 month later, my competition has brought in already their own features and maybe less features, but 2 months earlier, and the customers have, and they have offered it at some great prices. So customers who decided to buy new TVs, they thought, hey, let's grab this opportunity, and then they'll start buying all those. So by the time we release our product, then it's already our market share is gone. That the business outcome is bad. We have invested such a lot of money, but we didn't get all those revenues that we expected out of that. Or we didn't get the increase in the market share that we have expected as a business outcome. We didn't get that. So type 4 companies, they start recognizing that if we have implemented some of these project management methodologies, process, whatever, then they are also resulting in the business outcomes that are aligned. So those are type 4. And the type 5, this return on investment for a project is a very, very big thing actually. The worldwide still the percentage of successful projects as per chaos report, the last chaos report, is still hovering in between 25 to 30%. The percentage of successful projects across industries. In such a scenario, when 65 to 70% or 70 to 75% of the projects, either they are challenged or have failed. By the way, a challenge project is one that is being delivered, but is delivered late or delivered with higher budget, so it's gone, it's short of the baseline. That's a challenge project. And a failed project is, they thought, hey, let's stop this, no more point in investing any more money on this. That's a failed project. So that's the classification. So that together the challenged and failed projects, if they would account for 70 to 75% of it, then it's a little ambitious to talk about return on investment on a project because it's only 25 to 30%. Nevertheless, there are companies that have successfully aligned their strategy to execution. They measure things very, very well. They are able to actually measure their business outcome in a predictable way and then get the returns out of their investment. So that's the level 5 or the type 5 organizations and all. So these levels of maturity in the organization is another backdrop that I want to set up before we go on to talk about what and why a project management office. So what did we cover so far? So we first thought about what's the value of, at a very higher level, what's the value of a project management or a program or a portfolio management. And the next one is, how are the organizations classifying themselves in terms of their maturity levels and readiness in order. The organization, we cannot just be starting a project management office because someone else has started. When there is a readiness, always organizations will need to do some groundwork, make their organizations ready in order to move from one step to another or to adopt something like a project management office. So this will give an idea of what kind of an organization. So you can use this framework a little bit actually in your own organizations to see where is the project management maturity in my organization. Whether we are in level 1 or a level 0 or a level 2 or level 3, and do a little bit of a gap analysis and try and adopt some of those, bridge some of those gaps, and then try and move up onto on the chain. So that's the second part. Now, project management office. I've had an opportunity to have started and ran a project management office in an India Development Center in one of my previous jobs, and went on to run the same project management office globally, sitting in Hyderabad actually. And it was a great learning experience. There were a lot of mistakes we made, but we also learned from that. But at about a year later after that, actually 6 months after we have started that in India, then our global colleagues actually took notice of that and its value and emulated the same thing across in different time, in two time zones in the US and one in Europe. So four parts, 4 PMOs, and actually rolling up to a one mega, what they would call a mega, but then a bigger program management office, and then derived benefits. But what used to happen actually, what has prompted us to start a program or PMO has got different terminologies by different people. Some people would call project management office, some would call program management, some would call portfolio management. In other companies they call it as resource management, some would call vendor management office. Largely some of them may be attempting to do at least few things in a similar, or rather largely these centers or these kind of setup are started in order to overcome sometimes similar challenges. So what is PMO may help. First let me run through the points that I have put up here. So projects are delivered late, exceed budgets, that's very common one, no big deal about it. That happens everywhere. Estimation is not consistent across similar projects, and this is a big deal. I'll tell you some examples of that. Stakeholders are unhappy due to surprises. Resources are not available when needed. Underutilized in one project, while other projects is running very, very tight. Status reporting is very haphazard. You cannot make out head and tail of, you cannot determine where are you today with respect to your project in terms of cost, in terms of schedule, in terms of business outcome, in terms of requirements, nothing. Lack of prioritization of projects leading to conflict on resources. So sometimes we have only, companies would have limited resources that have to be utilized optimally and all of it. So unless the projects are prioritized and scheduled in a right way, then we cannot use the resources very optimally. So poor estimation and delivery. So those are all some of the indicators, but there, the list can go on. There can be at least 50 I can think of from the top of my head. But that's the way it is. So I'll just share an example from my own experience and how it used to be when I joined that organization. They were all different business units that have come. Some of them came in through acquisition, and each of them having a lot of history and culture, at least of 30 to 40 years of existence before being acquired. And the company that acquired them itself had more than 50 years of, actually that's close to 100 years of heritage, culture and all of it. So everybody thinks that, like all of us would think, right? Like similarly, everybody would think that what they are doing is the best in the world. The dress I wear is the best on the road. That's how I think that I'm handsome. So same thing happens for companies also. So this was happening, and I realized as head of the center that was having all business units working in my center and being responsible and accountable for the delivery from this center, it used to be a nightmare. All right. So, I'm sorry, I didn't do anything. So hello?
Sir, this is Anil. Actually, we are unable to hear you.
Just now or for how long?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, now we are able to hear you, sir. Yeah. Yeah, please continue.
I don't know, something happened on the, I'm getting a message, you are unmuted, muted. actually sitting very far from the place.
Okay, okay, okay. Now you can go ahead, sir. You can go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, yes, I am.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that.
Yes.
All right, so I was telling as to how the business units used to come with a lot of heritage and different processes and all. As a head of a center responsible for delivery of all those business units, it used to be a phenomenally nightmare. There were, to be precise, there were six business units. Each of them had their own way of making a project plan. Each of them had their own way of estimation. Each of them had their own reporting format. And they used to report their own counterparts, sometimes in the US, sometimes in Australia, sometimes in the Europe. So they all got their own bosses and all of that. And something would go wrong in some corner, and I used to be in the global management team. They will make me responsible. Hey, Ramam, what's happening over here and all. So I realized that this is going to be difficult if you have to run this. So then I thought, and interestingly, in some projects, by the way, there were about 50% of the resources across in that center. Those skills which are relatively junior, they had substitutable skills. I could have easily deployed them from one business unit to another business unit and all that, but that was also not possible because of the silos in the organization. So there was no optimum utilization of resources. One set of projects are always maybe sometimes some resources are free, others are all working 18 hours a day and all of it, so which was not a good situation to watch and keep quiet as a head of that center. So I thought that we should start now, do something different. So we brought in a team of one each from each of these business units working in India in this center. And everybody was scared that something would change for them if they will talk about a project management office. So I told them, hey, nothing would change. But because all of you are all in such a mature, all of our organization business units are all 40, 50 years, there must be a lot of nice business best practices that, and possibly some of us may be doing it in the same way across all of our businesses. Let's get together first and tell each other, share with each other what you think are your best practices that you follow while managing your projects. So people said, okay, that's a great idea. So everybody wanted to showcase what their best practice was to all other business units. So we got in all the people, did a small workshop, then we realized that there are some things that people are doing it exactly the same way. Although the nomenclature may be different and maybe there are small variants in it, but largely they were all right. So to the same team I said, okay, to this part of it, let's adopt same template, same kind of estimation, and let's start using the resources like a resource pool. Let's start using all of them across those so that so then after doing that, slowly people started recognizing the benefit of that. Today I may share 5 resources, but tomorrow I would need someone else is sharing 5 resources to me, so that made my life easy actually. So people started realizing that value, and slowly, so that I didn't call that as a project management office at all. It was just a collaboration, togetherness, and all of it. We gave all kind of names and started. That has gone beyond slowly, and then we established a project management office. Interestingly, I hired some PMP qualified project managers to run that one, and it has been very, very successful. Not just because they were all PMPs, but also their experience was very, very valuable. So the point I am trying to make is, it's not that the list that is there here, what I showed right now on the slide, if these are not working, then you straight away jump into a PMO, it's not going to work. There are a lot of dozens and dozens of several other factors that are to be kept in mind if you have to start a PMO. Absolutely. Process. No, these are all tactical, but a project management office should be actually started as a strategic office. So we will talk about, in my next few slides, I will talk about 3 different ways that organizations have, some of it is from my own little knowledge and experience, but some of it is also from the knowledge and information that I gathered in our project management community globally, in workshops, in conferences, in PMI events, in all kind of sorts. So I'm going to talk next 15 minutes about that, and then we will open it up for Q&A. So project management office, first, a definition, just in case you have not seen you are not a PMI member or not seen a project management body of knowledge, I just reproduce here the definition of, oops. Please wait, something went wrong here. I'm sorry, something, all right. So, a project management office is an organization. You need to centralize and coordinate it. Hello?
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 I don't know what the hell happened. Oh my God.
Hello?
I don't know what happened.
Sir, can you hear me?
Is it all right now? Yeah. Is it
yes,
all right?
yeah, it's all right, sir. Also all right.
Yeah. I don't know what happened in between. Something.
It's okay, so now we can.
Must be a commentary from an expert.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So it's sorry about that. I don't know how it happened. It's strange. It's a surprise. So PMOs can operate on a continuum. I'm reading it out, but I'll explain it to you. From providing project management support functions to actual direct management and responsibility for achieving the project objectives. So that's the whole objective of a project management office. So and we will deal with them one after another in the next few slides. So first one is a project management office as a support function. So how does it support? Providing tools and templates to the project team. So if people, we talked earlier a little bit in my thing about repeatability and consistency. If you don't have repeatability and consistency, then it becomes a heroic act, and then we cannot be successful that way. So in companies, if we are running several projects, it is someone's prerogative there up to give common tools and templates to the project team to adhere to. Otherwise, reporting becomes difficult, estimating becomes difficult, formats become difficult, everything will be different. Develop and implement methodologies and processes. So what's a process, what can be an input, who are all the stakeholders, how do you manage risks, who all need to receive the communication, all these kind of things have to be written down as a process. So only then everybody should adopt those things, otherwise companies will be in for surprises. Coordinate projects, manage process, project reporting and tracking. So the project managers themselves are not able to do that sometimes in companies that are running dozens and dozens of projects, and they use technology to capture all the data. So a project management office can serve as a third eye, that someone else is keeping a watch on what's happening over all the data. So they pick up all those data that is available in the repository, do all those analysis and present it to the management. So that's a part of a support function. Manage the documentation. So nobody talks about documentation, especially if it is in India. Nobody wants to do any documentation because for whatever reason. But documentation becomes such an important thing in the projects, not just about if something would go wrong and if you have to trace back to that to a last requirement and all of it, then it becomes, manufacturing companies have got some very good documentation. That's the example, automobile companies. You would read, I think about a week back or 10 days back, one of the automobile companies has said that they are withdrawing about 15,000 plus cars. They are calling them back into the factory because they suspected something went wrong and they have traced it back to a specific 2 or 3 shifts of manufacturing. All those that were manufacturing those 3 shifts, they are just calling them back and all. They were able to do that traceability because they have a very sound process and documentation and all. So to help the project teams with that documentation and all of that. Then develop and maintain project dashboards. I already talked about that. Help in some special tasks of project management. You know, there may be a lot of project teams and all of it, but not all of them may be experts in how do you do scheduling, how do you make a MS project plan, what are the factors that would consider into estimation and things like that. So there may not be so many experts in all the projects and all of it. So you can have a team of those people loaned out to the project teams to help them develop these things and then bring them back. So that's a part of support function. Make sure that similar projects are executed according to a consistent process. So the biggest problem actually in organizations is that silos and the walls and the boundaries that I don't want to know, don't even want to bother about what my other business unit is doing, or I don't want to share what I am doing with all others. So it is all my property. It's all about very protectionism and protecting the turf. So but if you look at it from a bigger perspective, from a business perspective, or from a CEO perspective and all, their job is to make sure that projects are all executed in an efficient way, consistent way, and delivered on time. So that can be one of the support functions by a project management office. Other one is training and mentoring people, and this is extremely important actually. And as what's this? The biggest resources for companies are all people. If people are not aligned and people are not transformed or people don't understand the value of doing something, then they won't do that one. And at the end of the day, it's for people to do that. You can have almost all of the automated tools and all of it, but at the end, it's humans who have to actually take part in that. So they have to be trained or they have to be equipped and mentored on all the value that they would do. So this is an important one. Every project team, if they are especially large project teams distributed across different locations and all of it, there may not be so many trainers, there may not be so much material, there may not be enough training rooms, all kind of stuff is there. So a central project management office can have some of those trainers who can actually train all the people on all the project teams and all of it. So that's one part of support function. Project reviews and capturing of lessons learned after project closure and thereby improve processes. And quite often what would happen, it's the same way like our last exam is over and we will go and party after that, not worrying about how we did all the exams and all. Similar thing will repeat when we will go back to work. A project is over, everybody will go nicely celebrate, and everybody already before the project is over, they want to know which project they would go and start working in. And nobody will care to write what are the lessons learned, what is that we could have done better, how did this mistake happen, what are those risks that we have overlooked, or if there was something that were overlooked but we have smartly managed them, how did we do that? So these are all to be documented and all. So a project management office as a support function sometimes can help do these things. Coaching and mentoring, we talked about it. Responsible for archival of project artifacts and maintaining a repository, we talked about it a little bit. And help with arriving at better estimates based on past project data and help in customer interface. So there are several things that a small project management office can do still to a larger organization in a role of a support. And it's very, very important, especially when it comes to training and all of those things, or defining some consistent process, there's a lot of value involved. So that's part one of how companies are using project management office. So not too much of a accountability for a project management office if it is a support function, but it becomes a backbone of the whole organization itself. Second part is monitoring and control. And if a PMO is responsible for monitoring and control, then there is more responsibility and accountability that would come. And what are these companies doing? They are responsibility for integrated project management and project delivery, primarily delivery and resource management. And integration is very, very important. Managing multiple projects or a single project running across functions, so they are responsible, the PMO is responsible for all of those. So they actually get involved as a part of a project team. They work part of estimates. Sometimes these people are the ones, they are planning the project, monitoring it very, very closely, and doing risk analysis, risk assessments, and things like that, reporting to a management whenever they have to raise a red flag, things like that. So that's about monitoring. Define metrics and monitor them on timelines. And this is not cooking up figures. There is a nice expression in English: if you cannot measure, you cannot manage. And you cannot manage something that you cannot measure. So measurement and measurement in a right way is very, very important. And sometimes it helps that a third party is measuring us so that there is no bias in that one. So if I am responsible for that one, then no point in cooking up figures. It's as well good to bring everything onto the table, because anyway it would surface. If I lie today, it would surface anyway after a month or so. So because I'm accountable for that. Then project audits and managing resources across projects, and this is very, very important. We think quite often in real life, in practice, we think about, hey, this 10 people, or why are we fighting for that one person? Why are we fighting that 5 people and all of it? It is not about the number of heads, or in some countries they would say number of bodies. It's not about the number of human beings that we are talking about. It's the specialized skill that that person would bring, or it's a specialized knowledge that the person would, that expertise that person would bring into that. And if we are to have a permanent member like that in our thing, if someone like that is not there, what's the impact of not having that kind of a skill? Or what's the impact of hiring such a person? How much time does it take to hire? How much time does it take for that person to understand, and things like that? So our resource is a resource, and we should respect that every resource has its own, every resource brings something onto the table. So managing resources across projects, not letting anyone go idle, but using all the resources very, very efficiently is a part of monitoring and controlling. And especially in this kind of the world we live today, when every 3 or 4 years we are hit by a global economic crisis, and there is crunch in budgets, the budgets are shrinking, its mantra is becoming more, do more with less. So in that kind of a world, we have to manage. The project managers or the program managers should manage their resources very, very efficiently across projects. Define project baselines for triple constraints and monitor and report project progress. And quite often, why is that? Those 70% of the projects I talked about earlier, they are either challenged or failed. That's because they keep on, they don't fix a baseline, and they don't know, and they continue to chase a moving goalpost. That's not the way to run projects. Quite often people would say, especially in our culture, the way we are in our country, we are not so good in planning. In general, that's not built into our system and culture. So we are used to mobilizing every resource available at our disposal, but still deliver it on time sometimes. People would want to work on weekends, work 18 hours, 20 hours and all of that one, but somehow make it happen at the end. That is largely the scenario. There will be exceptions from defense industry, for example, Chandrayaan or mission to Mars. These cases are great. They have predicted, they have just not only delivered it on time and on the budget, but think of that mission that has started going into a rover, a vehicle will go into an unknown place. It would reach after several years when it will be put into an orbit. It would reach that exactly at that position some thousands and thousands of miles away. That they have engineered and designed it and launched it. It's a classic example of planning. But if I would ask you, what would you be doing, today we are on Friday, what would you be doing on Sunday 11 o'clock? Then we wouldn't know. Majority of us don't know what we would be doing on Sunday 11 o'clock. Majority. So that's not the way it would go. A baselining, and then that means we are just chasing a moving goalpost, and we will just take it as things would come. So mobilizing all the resources towards the end of the project and delivering on time, or sometimes we take the shelter in the name of jugaad and all of it, that is not going to work all the time. Life in projects, a success of a project is by choice, not by chance, and it happens with the will to win. So it needs predictability. If you need predictability, then we have to plan things. So project management offices used in monitoring and control, they will also help us in better planning. That's the second part. And the last part is about project management office as a strategic function. And this goes up into a PMO would go and participate in a strategic planning exercise itself. And it starts from there, saying that participating in making the priorities for investments for future. And if you participate in that priority and the strategic planning, the positive side of that is it will help plan all the resources that we would need as we go on moving towards the execution. Measure business impact of project performance. So in program management world, there's something called a benefit realization. And just in case you have not heard that, just to put it in a very simple way, that you may ask, if it is a project of 100 days, and if you are already crossed, say, 50 days, and we would say, yeah, we have completed 50% of the project, and possibly we have also we are also on how do I say, fulfill the requirements that are to be finished as we reach this milestone of 50%, you would say, but don't track whether on cost you are 40% or 80% and all, then we are doomed. So we have to measure ourselves in different ways. In good old days, in a tactical world, it is all about time and cost, and of course quality. But in the business world, when it comes to strategic sense, then in a project, just like we have milestones for cost and timeline, there are also milestones for benefits. If we are doing agile and all of it have come exactly from this. So we don't want to be waiting for 2 years to see the benefits. We want to take them incremental benefits. So after 6 months, there's a part that is ready, and they want to measure whether I got the money, my benefit back or not for what I invested for these 6 months. Then I would move forward into the second phase of the project, of the bigger program and all. So that's about measuring business impact of project performance. Third one is helping in prior, we talked about it. Then managing a big portfolio, meaning managing all the numbers, where have we invested and what are the benefits that we get. And advice on recovery of troubled projects, or I didn't write it here, but also advice on canceling some projects which are no more viable. So drop a project, then you don't need to, you have already sunk some money, better not to sink any more money on that one, so just leave it there, just like that. I used to work long back in one of the manufacturing public sector companies. One of the plants, they used to say, it used to run for some years, it used to run in such high losses. They used to say, it is better to stop production in this plant in order to be break even rather than doing production in that. so bad it was. So if it was that kind of a thing, then anything that we would do would be only sinking more costs. So we have to make a decision whether to stop doing that one. That's also a strategic decision. Strategic decision is also not about which project to stop. Strategic projects is also which projects to stop. That's also an important part of strategic planning. Define PM competencies and career path. And this again comes back to people, and the talent development is a very important in organizations in order to manage our projects very, very successfully. And I have myself can share some examples, my own experiences. I used to get beaten up as head of a center for people not responding to correct estimates. People don't give correct estimate, or they don't pay much attention to an estimate, then the whole thing will go wrong. Or people don't raise a red flag very early and want to resolve things and all over weeks of time, and when it is very late, they would stand up and say, no, this is a problem, and all of that one. It used to cause a lot of chaos. So we introduced in our organization anyone who has worked for more than 3 years. There's a small module of 3 hours module. This is not a rocket science kind of thing, just 3 hours. What's your responsibility if you are working on a project? Example, it is your responsibility to give as much as possible right estimate. You understand that if you don't give a right estimate, 100 other people working on the project, their great work will be jeopardized. So everyone has a responsibility to give as much better estimate as possible. If you see something would a risk that you would foresee already coming up in the next 15 days, don't sit on that foot to wait to watch and then let it occur. It's your responsibility as a team member to raise the hand, already alert. It finally may not occur after 15 days. At least you have raised it, someone would have taken notice of that, and someone would have planned to mitigate that risk. These are all responsibilities of individual project manager or individual project team member, not of all the project. All of those things a project manager cannot oversee all of these things. So there is a responsibility of each and every project manager. So I introduced a 3-hour module for everybody who has completed 3 years in the organization. And this used to run for different quantitative analysis, what would go wrong if you don't behave like this, soft skills training and things like that. And it dramatically changed the way we used to deliver our projects after 6 months of time. The behaviors of people have changed actually after 6 months. So that kind of a thing, defining PM competencies and career path, is also a part of a strategic role that project management should have. That's about three parts of 3 different ways a project management office is set up in organization that I'm aware of. The last slide, I think, reasons for not having a strong project management office, lack of recognition in management on the value, and lack of support. So if the management itself doesn't recognize, if your sponsor doesn't recognize the value, then there will be no investment. They don't care about any of those projects. Then the PMO is seen as an overhead. They would say, what the hell are these 20 people doing for my 500 people organization? These are not experts. So they just do some desk work and all of it and things like that. If they would treat it like that, then they would get the same result. So it is seen as an overhead. It's seen more as a lip service and less as an investment. And the last one, where is the PMO reporting into? That will determine the interest and the sponsorship for a PMO. If a PMO is a part of a functional organization reporting into one business unit head, then it is doomed. It can never function independently. It's like a quality function in an organization. A quality head would report to the CEO because he is supposed to be the eyes and ears of the CEO in terms of the quality. Same thing happens for PMO also. And sometimes vendor management office of customer serves as a PMO. So we say, no, the vendor is already managing all of those things and keeping track of that. I don't need to have another PMO and all of it, people would say. So these are some of the reasons. Lack of reliable data, systems and tools, lack of metrics, things like that. All right, coming to the last slide, and this is all about in a project, managing a project or a project management office or a portfolio or a program and whatever it is. Managing a project is a science and an art. It's science because it has got tools, it has got processes, it has got estimates, and this, things like that. That's science. At the end, it is also to do with the people. And if the people don't do that, then you can have all the best things, but it will still be screwed up. So managing those people is an art. And here is how a great example of how the projects are run. Everybody will think that this is not my job. And then they would go. And this is a realistic photo that I took on the road that I drive almost every day. And this is about a couple of years back. And the branch that you see there, actually it is not a log, not a big log so heavy that nobody could have pushed it. Someone who was painting that could have easily pushed it with his leg, but he thought that it is not his job. So integration of all of those functions is as much important, and that's a very big job of a project management office can do in the organizations. That's all on my talk today. It will be unfair if I don't mention about my employer who has allowed me in between my schedule to come and share my experience with you. So L.V. Prasad Eye Institute is one of the reputed eye institutes in the world, recognized by World Health Organization. About 28-year-old institution based out of Hyderabad, having served more than 2 million people so far. About 55% of them are served free. Our goal is to prevent avoidable blindness. I myself quit corporate world to join this mission and participate in the programs to prevent avoidable blindness, especially in the rural areas and all. So there are about 110 rural centers, mostly in states of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, and the neighboring Maharashtra border. So that's what we do. So I help them. I got a formal role. I started volunteering for several months to help them. Then I was pushed into a formal role. So I worked there, running their operations, helping in technology and all of that one. So that's my employer. So I thought I should make a mention of that for a minute and thank them for giving me this opportunity to come and share my experiences with you. And in any of your audience, if you have a CSR wing of yours and all of that one, then you are most welcome. We depend a lot on all the cutting edge research that we do and all the patients, a lot of them that we serve free. We depend on a lot on the grants and donations and all of it. If anybody is interested in knowing that one, I'll show you my mail ID. Please take a note of that and send me. If you are a PMI member, I would encourage you to refer. Take a note of this website. This is on the PMI website, and the PMI members have access to this. The impact of PMOs on strategy implementation. There's a nice research paper. PMI does a lot of research, spending millions of dollars, and working with hundreds of companies, asking them questions and doing a research to know what are the trends, and to help practitioners like us to learn something from that one. So there are lot of material available here. One of them is the impact of PMOs on strategy implementation. I have not taken any of those into my presentation, so you can better read that part. And thank you very much. So I would open this for Q&A for the next 15-20 minutes, and I've got it. All right.
Thank you, sir. Again, Anil this side for the wonderful session. I request all the yes, sir. So I request all the participants to type in the question in the question box which they have in their window. And we have one question from Mr. Dhruv Sen. He's saying, sir, any suggestions please about how to measure ROI on use of project management on a project, so that organizations can actually justify the establishment of a PMO? Because this is the most difficult part. Right now, many organizations find it difficult to even justify and get approved the purchase of PM tools, what to talk of PMOs.
Yeah, that's a great question. PMO is for a very matured organization and all that, but a lot of organizations still have to ready themselves for that. How do we demonstrate the value of project management? Like you rightly said, company would say we don't even want to invest in our tools and all that. Yeah, that's where the organizations would start. I think the way to first, who would show the value? If you are a project manager, then I would actually when I was a project manager, I took the responsibility to myself to educate my bosses and all about the value of project management. Or I actually sometimes used to go and discuss with them and tell, hey, I've gone wrong on this one. You know what? We should have, you remember I used to tell you that there's sometimes our processes are screwed up and we wanted to invest in, I wanted to take out some 5 people out for 3 days to spend time on defining the process so that we all adopt that. You never allowed that to happen. Now look what has happened in all of it. Or, you know, whenever you had a great suggestion that you should take it up to your sponsors, to your managers and all of it, be it a success or something that would have been prevented in a project had you got something else invested, you should bring that visibility of those things to your management. I think that will change the minds of people. And more importantly, quite often the people would say the sponsors or the people who would put the money on the table investing on the project, what you just think from their shoes, what's it that they lose their sleep on? Or example, if it's a CEO, then it is all their shareholders and all of that. If it is a project, if it is your own CMD, then what is it that is committed to his board, or what is it that is being committed to the customers and all of that one. So every project, anything that we have started will definitely have some goal. Sometimes it's a business goal, sometimes it can be technology goal. So you are starting a new technology product that would hit the market 2 years later. Right now it is difficult to measure its value. But more important thing is that it should be delivered on time at the end of whenever you have planned. Or that's the same example what I gave you about the TV manufacturers. So once you ask them, hey, why did we start this project? What's the final goal? And then you start adopting some of these processes and training of the people, building talent, using some templates, doing some documentation, adopting some process, show them the value of doing these things. I think the mindsets will change. That's my recommendation.
Thank you, sir. I think this answer would be satisfying to Mr. Dhruv. Mr. Dhruv, you can actually ask back again if you have any more query related to that. So there is one more question from Mr. Amit. He is actually coming from a small company, and where the the major even office softwares are also not utilized, and they are lacking quality. I mean, they are unable to meet the on the targets or on the quality as well as on the on timely. So he is coming from a PMO background, but his management is reluctant to adopt PMO tools. So what advice you can give?
Yeah, no, that's you're on a tough job, Amit. So I can relate to that a little bit. When I was also a young project manager and all, I would share from my own experience. So this may not be the best one and all, but I can only share what I came across or from the hurdles that I crossed. I always believed that every company or every manager or every sponsor who has put in some money in a business, forget about whether you have a project management office, a quality group, or a software engineering process group, or whatever. Forget about whether there is such group or not. Example, you are the only person who is knowledgeable about project management and quality management and responsible. What is important is on how you are slowly pushing some of these best things into the system, so that your small organization will start recognizing the value of those things. Example, what is a quality measure, or what is an ABC analysis, or if it is in terms of quality, what is an 80-20 rule that has happened over several defects or several, if they have never done that one, and if you have done that and then showed that, hey, look, this is what has happened in the last 6 months data, and this is how you can adopt a tool to measure this, and this is what are the remedial measures you can take. I can help you do this one, and let's monitor this progress. So it's no point in referring to some great research work and our neighbor's success and some literature. You can never sell that in any organization. You can only sell that by demonstrating value. And you can demonstrate value only if you will align what you are driving a change that should be aligned towards the goals of the person who is responsible for that. If that would happen, then it's an easy one. That's my suggestion. Making sense?
He would be hearing to your advice. So there is one more question: how to change the people's you can say resistance towards the new practices which are being brought up on PMO acceptance or implementation?
Oh, implementation of new practices.
I think new PMO, once so organization is implementing a PMO in the office, so there is a resistance which is seen in the organization by the people and the culture.
Yeah.
So is there any advice that how we can manage that?
Shoot. I'm just kidding. So, resistance will be there all the time whenever there is a change, and be it for PMO or be it for whatever and all of it. So that's a given. So there will be always resistance. There will be always resistance if you want to start a new initiative. That'll be there. So, and leadership is about influence. Leadership is measured by influence and the positive impact that someone would make. So long back, I would say about 10 years back or so, a project manager's qualities were all focusing on processes, on the science part of it. I mentioned to you already. They all were focusing on the science part of it. In the last 5, I would say maybe 10 years, when world has become more flat and more global, then the world, I'm just thinking whether I should use the word business or otherwise, world started taking notice of the softer side of managing people. So there will be resistance, but we have to, that's where the art part of project manager comes in. So you have to influence those people, and I would say all the time, I work on every now and then on transformation programs in my job, heading organizations for 20 years or so. Acquisitions, organization that I am working got acquired. We go and acquire some organization, I will integrate someone else from other organization to my organization. We start a new initiative, and then people would think that it's of no value, or people will feel very scared that they will have to do something else. All kind of reasons. The only way to transform people is by influencing them, demonstrating the value, or actually, if you will say, you do this, if you will tell someone, nobody will do that one, because they don't understand why it should be done. But if you will say, hey, here is another way of doing this one, and it will help you in your job, I bet, give me a chance, and then let's both work on this, and then let's try it for 1 month and see. And slowly, if you will influence that way, then you get a foot inside the door, and then both of you will work. And I'll bet on this one. That kind of an approach, after 3 months, that person will run after you to help in the transformation. So it's about collaborating for the transformation. That's very, very important. Otherwise, what people will always be resistance to change and all of that. So a PMO would come, and nobody should feel threatened about a change. That's the most important part. If people should not be threatened about any change, what is it that you do? Then you will start showing them the benefits of that change. Or why is this bigger thing required to be done and all of it. So you show them the big picture. in spirituality there is a word called renunciation. Now, renunciation is that you don't give up something that you love unless I show you something else that is more attractive. And it happens, the simplest example is you have two small kids at your first kid buy a three-wheel cycle, he will keep on riding that. A second kid arrives and wants the same cycle, the first kid will never give that one. He'll keep push, beat up and all that. That will still keep happening till you buy a two-wheel cycle to your elder child. Then he will dump the three-wheeler to his younger sibling and then do that. Same thing would happen. I don't want to give up all my practices that I have adopted. I want to be very, very possessive about the way that I was doing things and all, till I start recognizing how it would benefit me when I adopt some new ways and all. And the art of the soft skill or the art of project management is in doing that. Thank you.
I believe these are very.
I don't know if it makes.
Yeah, actually, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it makes me believe that it's more of a art actually. You know how you convince your all stakeholders. I think we. Yeah, please tell me.
I'm sorry. Just one thing I remembered.
Yes.
In PMO is a great example how it has transformed. I think it is in version 5 or 6 now. But a stakeholder management was just maybe 3 paragraphs in a book of 250 pages in version 3. Now a stakeholder management is a complete independent chapter of tens of pages. You know, that's an example of how important stakeholders have become, how important it has become to manage all the stakeholders and all of that one. And very important thing, if you are in a job as a project manager, always, or if you are a leader in an organization and all, it's always important to align people towards a bigger goal. If they don't understand why they are doing this project, if you don't tell people, hey, if you don't deliver this project on time, that company will go into losses and we will lose this business. If you will tell that, that's a different conversation than telling him, hey, you are supposed to do these 3 activities, why didn't you do? There's a difference in between these 2 conversations. You know, so if you will show, a classic example I give always in my project management training is, this is from a city. A fellow was digging a pit, moving forward. Another fellow was coming from behind and he was filling that pit. So this was happening and all. The motorist noticed this and got very curious. He stopped by and asked this guy, hey, what the hell are you doing? That fellow is filling and you are, that fellow is digging and you are filling, the net impact is 0. So this fellow said, sorry sir, actually there's a third person who was supposed to come and plant trees. He is absent today, but we are going ahead and doing our job. So, but you cannot question those fellows and find fault with them because someone has told them, hey, you have to just dig 50 pits today and you are paid 500 rupees. Full stop. So that's all he knows. But the mayor of that city has said, this is a Go Green month, we are going to plant 1 million trees and after 5 years our city will be greener and all of it. The fellows on the ground have no clue why they are doing their job. So if you align people towards a larger goal and say why this change is required in order to reach that, and if you don't reach that, what would happen to me and the company? Have that kind of a conversation, then things will change.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this wonderful advice, actually. I believe we have now these limited questions as of now. I ask all the participants in case if they have any query, they can write to us, which I will route to our speaker. Now I extend a warm thank you to you, sir, for taking such a wonderful session on the behalf of delegates and CII. And I also would like to inform all the participants the recording of this session as well as the presentation would be available on my CII and the link will be shared with them shortly.
All right. So thank you everyone for your patience. I also enjoyed it. So
thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye, sir.